Transfer of ownership, 80%, to Ryan Christopher Mitchell. My eyes scanned the line again, the words dancing across the page as if written in a foreign language. My breathing became shallow as I held the legal documents I had just found in the confidential file drawer in my office. Date: March 15, 2024. 6 months ago. They did this 6 months ago and never told me. My name is Christopher Mitchell, I'm 34 years old, and I just found out that my parents transferred 80% of our family business to my younger brother, while I was working 80 hours a week believing that Mitchell Construction would be my inheritance. The paper trembled in my hands. Not from fear, but from a rage so pure that my entire body vibrated with it. Ryan was 28 years old and had been working part-time for only 2 years. I dedicated an entire decade of my life to this company, sacrificed relationships, vacations, nights of sleep, all because my father always said that one day it would all be mine. Chris will run this place when I retire, he used to declare proudly to clients, pointing me out as his chosen successor. This boy has Mitchell in his veins. Lies. All lies. The company my grandfather founded in 1962, which grew under my father's leadership, which I helped modernize and expand, now belonged to my brother, who barely knew the difference between a structural beam and a decorative support. I looked around the office where I practically lived. My desk was covered with reports I would review late into the night. On the wall were certificates for projects I had managed on my own: the Riverside Residential Complex, the renovation of the municipal hospital, the shopping center that brought in our first big revenue. The company's revenue had doubled in the last 5 years, because of my work, my dedication, my industry contacts. And they gave it all to Ryan. Ryan, who arrived at 10 a.m. claiming to have outside meetings that no one ever confirmed. Ryan, who left at 4 p.m. for supplier meetings that always magically coincided with happy hour. Ryan, who took 2 weeks of creative vacation every other month to study market trends at expensive resorts. Ryan, who never took a single emergency call when a project was late. Who never missed a weekend reviewing budgets or calming nervous clients. Who never slept at the office during bidding season. While I sacrificed everything. 2 girlfriends broke up with me because I never had time. "You love this company more than you love me," Sarah had yelled before slamming the door of my apartment. She wasn't wrong. I loved Mitchell Construction like a son loves his father's dreams. I missed my best friend's wedding because I couldn't leave in the middle of a crucial negotiation. I canceled family vacations 3 years in a row. My own mother stopped inviting me to dinner because she knew I'd be 2 hours late if I showed up at all. And for what? To find out that while I was building my future brick by brick, they were secretly handing everything over to Ryan. The sound of the door opening made me look up. It was Eleanor, our office manager for 20 years. She had watched me grow up in this company, taught me how to organize files when I was 14 and working a summer internship. "Chris, did you find what you needed?" she asked, but her expression changed when she saw what I was holding. The instant guilt on her face told me everything I needed to know. "You knew," I said. It wasn't a question. She looked down at her wrinkled hands, the same ones that had signed my paychecks for the past decade. "Your father asked me not to discuss it. He said he would tell you when the time was right." The right time. My voice came out louder than I intended, echoing off the walls of the office I knew better than my own home. 6 months, Eleanor. Everyone knew but me. Most of the senior staff was informed, for contractual purposes, she admitted quietly, her voice breaking slightly. "Chris, I wanted to tell you, but what? You all watched me work myself to exhaustion knowing I was building someone else's empire." The humiliation burned hotter than the anger. They all knew. Marcus, our construction supervisor, whom I considered a mentor. Jennifer in accounting, who processed my overtime reports every week. David, our best contractor, who always greeted me as future boss. They all watched me work myself to exhaustion, lose relationships, sacrifice my youth, knowing that my brother was now the owner of the company I had devoted my life to building. "I have to get out," I muttered, gathering my papers into my briefcase and grabbing my leather jacket, the same one I had worn since college because I never had time to buy new clothes. "Chris, wait," but I was already leaving, my mind spinning with a single question that pierced my chest like a stake. How could they do this to me? The answer came on the drive to my empty apartment, as I began to remember all the conversations from the past few months that now made terrible, crystal-clear sense. The private meetings between my father and Ryan from which I was mysteriously excluded. Tiresome administrative matters, my father always said when I asked. The way my mother changed the subject whenever I mentioned expansion plans or my long-term vision for the company. The way Ryan started talking about his vision for the future of the business, using terms he had clearly memorized from some management book. The little signs I ignored because I blindly trusted the promise that shaped my entire existence. If you're enjoying this story of family betrayal, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happened next changed everything forever. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a carefully orchestrated conspiracy to keep me in the dark while they stole my future. But while they thought they had me completely fooled, they didn't know one crucial thing. I knew every client, every contract, every operating system in this company better than anyone else. And I had just decided it was time for them to find out exactly how much they were worth without me. I got home and immediately called my best friend since college, Marcus. If there was one person in the world who knew my entire history with Mitchell Construction, it was him. Chris? Dude, are you okay? You sound weird. Marcus, I need to tell you something. And you're going to think I'm lying. Over the next 20 minutes, I spilled the entire story. The documents. The secret transfer. The fact that literally everyone knew but me. Marcus was silent for so long that I thought the phone had dropped. Son of a bitch, he finally muttered. Chris, that's psychopathic. How could they do that to you? That was the question that tormented me. How could my own family betray me like this? Ryan had always been the favorite, ever since we were kids. While I spent my summers learning about construction, he was at art camps or traveling with our rich cousins in Seattle. When I studied civil engineering to better understand the business, he majored in liberal arts because he wanted to find himself. Our parents always justified this difference with the same phrase, Ryan is more sensitive, Chris. He needs more support to find his way. More support. As if my dedication was something I owed to the family business, not a choice I deserved recognition for. When Ryan returned from a 6-month journey of self-discovery in Europe at age 25, our father created a position for him out of thin air. Director of Creative Development. We didn't even know what that meant, but suddenly Ryan was making $60,000 a year to think outside the box. Meanwhile, I was working 80 hours a week as operations manager, making only $15,000 more than my brother, who showed up when he wanted and left for 3-hour networking lunches. Chris, you have to sue these guys, Marcus said, bringing me back to the present. I can't sue my own family. Besides, technically they didn't do anything illegal. It's their company, they can transfer it to whoever they want. Even after a decade of promises. That was the part that hurt the most. They weren't just empty promises, they were public commitments, repeated constantly in front of customers, suppliers, employees. My father introduced me as his successor at every important meeting. This is my son Chris, he would say proudly. He'll be running all of this when I retire. He's got the Mitchell vision in his blood. Lies. All lies. The cruel irony was that Ryan didn't even really want to run a construction company. On the few occasions we talked about the future of the business, he made it clear that he found it all too corporate and lacking artistic soul. You know, Chris, he had said to me a few months ago during a family dinner, sometimes I think it would be cool to turn this into a creative cooperative. Like, less focus on profit and more on architectural expression. Our father had laughed as if it were a charming joke. I almost spit out my wine imagining trying to explain architectural expression to Mr. Anderson, our most pragmatic client. But now I understood that this wasn't casual conversation. Ryan was planting seeds of his revolutionary ideas, to justify why he deserved to lead the company. And it worked. My mother, Linda, had always been the more subtle manipulator. Where my father was direct with his promises, she worked with emotional guilt. Chris, honey, you work too hard. Wouldn't it be wonderful if Ryan could take on more responsibility so you could have a normal life? Ryan has such fresh, modern ideas. Maybe you could work together, each using your strengths. Your brother feels a little lost sometimes. It would mean so much to him if he had a bigger role in the company. For his self-esteem, you know. Translation: Ryan needed validation, so they stole my future to give it to him. What drove me crazy was remembering all the times I almost discovered the truth, but let it slide because I trusted them blindly. 3 months ago, I walked into my father's office and found Ryan there, both of them poring over papers that they quickly hid when they saw me. Just discussing some marketing ideas, my father had said casually. Cool. Can I join? I asked. Actually, it's still very early. How about we talk about it when it's more developed? Now I knew they were probably reviewing the property transfer documents. Or the time I overheard my mother on the phone saying, "No, he doesn't know yet. Thomas wants to wait for the right moment." When I asked her what it was about, she said she was talking to my aunt about a surprise party. Surprise party. The only surprise was finding out that my entire family was plotting against me. Marcus interrupted my bitter thoughts. "So, what's the plan? You're not just going to take this, are you?" That was exactly what I was asking myself. Part of me wanted to confront my father directly, yell at him until he understood how wrong he was. Another part wanted to just leave the company and start my own construction firm, taking a few important clients with me. But there was a third option forming in my mind. An option that involved letting Ryan find out for himself how complicated it really was to run Mitchell Construction. "Marcus, you know who our biggest clients are right now, right?" "Sure. Anderson Construction is the big fish, right? Like 30% of annual revenue." "Exactly. And you know who my direct contact there has been for the last 5 years? You. And you know who has all the technical details of the projects in progress in his head? You. And you know who knows all the quirks of our suppliers, all the shortcuts in the bureaucratic processes, all the passwords to the operating systems." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Chris, you're not thinking of..." "I'm not thinking of sabotaging anything," he said carefully. "I'm just thinking of stopping working for free for a company that is no longer mine." The beauty of the situation was that I didn't have to do anything destructive. I just had to stop being indispensable to a company that clearly didn't value me. Ryan wanted to be the boss? Perfect. He could figure out how to explain to Anderson why his project was behind schedule. He could try to decipher our inventory system without my personal documentation. He could deal with the crisis when our main supplier in Chicago decided to raise prices without warning. "You know, Marcus," I said, feeling a strange calmness wash over me, "I think I'm going to take a vacation. A real vacation." "How much vacation time do you have?" 6 weeks. I've never used it because I always thought the company needed me. And now? I smiled for the first time since finding the documents. Now I think it's time to find out if she really does. What Ryan and my parents didn't know was that, over the past 10 years, I had meticulously documented every process, every relationship, every system that made the company work. Not because I planned to leave, but because I'm organized by nature. That documentation was all on my personal computer, in my private notes, in my personal network. Technically, they had the legal right to fire or transfer any employee. But good luck running a company when the only employee who really knew how everything worked decided to take a break. If they wanted Ryan to learn how to be a leader, I was about to give him the best education possible. The most expensive lesson in business management anyone has ever received. The following Monday, I did something I had never done in 10 years at Mitchell Construction. I arrived at 9 a.m. Not 6:30 a.m. like always. At 9 a.m., like a normal employee would. Eleanor looked at me in surprise as I walked past the reception desk. "Chris, are you okay? We've had 3 calls from Anderson Construction since 8 a.m. "Oh," I said casually, taking my time getting my coffee. "They probably want to talk about the project schedule. Ryan can take care of that." But Ryan isn't in yet. I'm sure he'll be in soon. After all, it's his responsibility now. At 9:45 a.m., my phone rang. It was my father. "Chris, where are you? Mr. Maxwell has been calling for an hour asking about the technical details of his project foundation." "I'm at the office, Dad. At my regular work time." "Your regular work time? You always come in at 6:30 a.m., I know. But considering that I'm no longer the future owner of this company, I thought I should adopt a more professional schedule." Silence on the other end of the line. "Mr. Maxwell is waiting," he finally said. "Ryan can take him. Surely the new owner of the company knows the technical details of the projects." At 10:30, Ryan finally arrived, looking slightly hungover. "Hey bro," he said, passing my desk. "Dad said Maxwell is trying to get in touch with you." "Really? I didn't know I was still responsible for his clients." Ryan stopped and looked at me confused. "What do you mean?" "Well, you own the company now. I thought it would be your responsibility to manage client relations." "Oh man, you know I'm more of a creative guy. Maxwell is too technical for me." Then when do you plan on learning the technical side of the business you now own? The confusion on his face turned to genuine panic. Just then, Eleanor came running up. Ryan, Mr. Anderson is on line 2. He wants to know why no one responded to the emails he sent on Friday about the change in specifications. Ryan looked at me desperately. Chris, sorry, I didn't get any emails from Anderson. But I'm sure you can take care of it. The truth was that I had received the email on Friday evening. Normally, I would have responded immediately, even though it was the weekend. This time, I simply marked it as unread. Over the next few hours, 3 things happened that began to show cracks in the Mitchell empire. First, our main steel supplier called with a delivery problem. Ryan spent 2 hours on the phone being transferred from department to department. Second, accounting discovered a discrepancy that required a review of the contracts. I had a personal coding system that made these checks easy. Ryan had no idea how to decipher it. Third, I received an unexpected call. Chris? This is Robert Henley from Henley Development. Henley Development was one of the largest real estate development companies in the region. Mr. Henley, how can I help you? Actually, I'm calling with a proposal. I heard you might be available for new challenges. I'm always open to interesting conversations. Excellent. How about coffee tomorrow? I have a project that would be perfect for someone with your experience. After I hung up, Ryan showed up at my door accompanied by my father. Chris, we need to talk, my father said in that authoritative voice. Sure. What can I do for the owners of Mitchell Construction? My father closed the door. This behavior has to stop. You're hurting the business. I'm working within my responsibilities as an employee. Nothing more, nothing less. Chris, you know the company needs you. Needs me? Interesting. Then why did you transfer ownership to someone who clearly can't perform basic functions? Ryan exploded. I didn't ask for this to be so complicated. I thought it would be more like overseeing creative ideas. Overseeing? I laughed genuinely. Ryan, you don't oversee a construction company. You run it. You solve problems at 2 a.m. and work weekends when necessary. But that's exactly what you've always done, my father protested. Exactly. And now Ryan can do the same. I stood up and grabbed my jacket. I need to leave early today. I have an important meeting tomorrow. What meeting? My father asked suspiciously. A meeting about my future. Something that clearly no longer includes Mitchell Construction. The look of panic that crossed their faces was almost comical, because they finally understood that this wasn't just a temporary tantrum. It was the beginning of the end of the world as they knew it. And Ryan was about to discover that owning a company meant a lot more than having a fancy title on the door. His real education was just beginning. The meeting with Robert Henley the next morning was revealing in ways I hadn't expected. Chris, I'll be blunt, he said, stirring his coffee. My assistant Marcus Peterson told me about your family situation. Marcus Peterson. Not the same Marcus who was my best friend, but another Marcus, the one who worked for Henley and was Eleanor's cousin. Small construction world. Interesting, I replied carefully. I've been following your work for years. That municipal hospital project? Brilliant. The Riverside complex? Flawless. And now I hear your family has transferred the company to someone with no technical experience. He leaned forward. I'm expanding to the East Coast. I need someone who understands both the technical and administrative sides of the business. Starting salary $180,000, plus profit sharing. It was almost double what I was making at Mitchell Construction. How long have you been planning to offer me this? I asked. Honestly? Since last year. I just didn't know how to convince you to leave the family business. I smiled for the first time in days. Circumstances have changed. I imagine they have. When could you start? 2 weeks, I said without hesitation. On the drive back, my phone rang incessantly. Ryan, my father, Eleanor, all in a panic. I finally answered my father's call. Chris, where the hell are you? We have 3 crises here. I'm on my way back from the cafe. What kind of crises? Anderson is threatening to terminate the contract if we don't get the revised specifications by tomorrow. The Chicago supplier canceled our order because someone forgot to confirm payment. And the audit team has arrived for the annual inspection and can't find half the documentation. Wow. That sounds complicated. Complicated? Chris, this is a catastrophe. Where's Ryan? I don't know. I'm not responsible for his schedule. You need to get back here right now and resolve these issues. Actually, I don't, I said calmly. I'm no longer the company's unofficial operations manager. I'm just a regular employee. Chris, cut the crap. The company is falling apart. Then maybe you should have thought about that before giving 80% of it to someone who doesn't know how to run it. I hung up and turned off my phone completely. That afternoon, I did something I had never done before. I went to the gym during business hours. While running on the treadmill, I mentally organized my plan. First, I would finalize the transition with Henley Development. 2 weeks was enough time to document all the critical processes, but only the processes, not the relationships or personal insights I had developed over a decade. Second, I would make sure all my personal contacts in the industry knew about my career change. Not maliciously, just informatively. Third, and most importantly, I would let Ryan learn the hard way that leading a company requires more than creative ideas and superficial charm. When I turned on my phone that night, I had 47 missed messages. The first was from Eleanor, sounding almost hysterical. Chris, Anderson canceled tomorrow's meeting. He said he won't discuss technical specifications with amateurs, his exact words. The second was from Ryan, clearly panicking. Bro, I need your help. I don't understand half of these spreadsheets you've created. What does compensated structural tension mean? The third was again from my father. Chris, I understand you're upset, but you can't let the company go under because of a family dispute. Family dispute. As if I were a child throwing a tantrum. The messages continued, each more desperate than the last. In message 23, Ryan finally admitted, Chris, I don't know what I'm doing. I need you here. In message 31, my father offered me a raise, 15% on top of your current salary, effective immediately. In message 39, my mother joined the conversation. Chris, honey, you're destroying our family out of pride. Pride. Not justice. Not principles. Pride. It was exactly the confirmation I needed that my family really didn't understand what they had done. The next morning, I arrived at the office at 9:30 a.m., even later than the day before. Eleanor intercepted me before I even got to my desk. Chris, thank God you're here. We have an emergency. What kind of emergency? Maxwell has canceled completely. Anderson is considering contractual penalties for late delivery. And the Occupational Safety Department has arrived for a surprise inspection after an anonymous complaint. Anonymous complaint. Interesting. Where's Ryan? He's not in yet. It was almost 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, and the owner of the company hadn't shown up to deal with multiple crises. What about my father? He's on the phone with the lawyers, trying to see if we can avoid Anderson's fines. I sat down at my desk and opened my computer for the first time in 2 days. Hundreds of unread emails, most with subjects like urgent, need immediate action, and crisis respond today. I closed my computer without reading any of them. Ryan arrived at 11 a.m., looking like he hadn't slept in days. Chris. He practically ran to my desk. Man, you need to help me understand something. What exactly is a certificate of structural compliance, and why is the occupational safety people asking for it? It's a document that certifies that our structures meet safety codes. And where do we get that? You request it from the structural engineering department after completing a series of tests and inspections. And how long does that take? Normally. 2 weeks. In an emergency? A week if you know the right people and know exactly which forms to fill out. His face went white. And you know these people? I do. Can you call them now? I could, he said slowly. But why would I do that? The question left him speechless. For the first time, Ryan was understanding that knowledge and relationships don't automatically come with property titles. At that moment, my cell phone rang. It was Henley Development. Chris? Robert here. I've got an idea. How about we move up your start date? We've got an emergency project that would be perfect for your skills. What kind of project? A local construction company is facing compliance issues. The owner has come to us desperately for consulting. Ironically, it's a company called Mitchell Construction. Do you know them? For a moment, I couldn't speak. The irony was too perfect. I know them very well, I finally said. Excellent. We can charge a premium rate for emergency consulting. Would you be willing to start tomorrow? If you're enjoying seeing how this perfect revenge is unfolding, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out what happens when Chris returns to his old company as an outside consultant. I looked at Ryan, who was still waiting for an answer about the compliance certificates. Ryan, I said, standing up and grabbing my jacket. I need to leave early today. I have a very interesting job offer to consider. The look of utter panic on his face was almost comical, because he was finally beginning to understand that owning a company means much more than owning a piece of paper. And I was about to give him a lesson in business management he would never forget. The real irony? When I returned tomorrow, it would be to save the family business. At a very, very high price. The next morning, I walked into Mitchell Construction at 8 a.m. sharp. Not as Chris Mitchell, employee for a decade, but as Christopher Mitchell, senior consultant with Henley Development. Eleanor nearly dropped her coffee when she saw me at the front desk wearing a new suit and carrying a Henley Development briefcase. Chris? What? How? Good morning, Eleanor. I'm here on behalf of Henley Development for an emergency consultation. I believe Mr. Thomas Mitchell is expecting me. The irony was delicious. They were so desperate they agreed to pay a premium rate without even asking which consultant would be sent. My father appeared in the hallway, looking like he had aged 5 years in 3 days. When he saw me, his face went through a series of expressions: relief, confusion, and finally, terrible understanding. Henley Development sent you? That's correct. I'm the company's structural compliance specialist. I understand you're having some difficulties. Ryan appeared behind him, still in his pajamas at 8:30 a.m. Chris. Man, I'm glad you're back. Mr. Ryan, I interrupted formally. I'm Christopher Mitchell, a consultant with Henley Development. I don't believe we've been formally introduced. My father pulled me into his office, slamming the door behind us. What the hell are you doing, Chris? My job. Henley Development charges $500 an hour for emergency consulting. We estimate 80 hours to resolve the current problems. $40,000? You've got to be kidding. Actually, no. And that's just for the immediate problems. I opened my briefcase and pulled out an official contract. Here are the terms. If you attempt to cancel before completion, you will pay a $150,000 termination fee. That's extortion. That's business. You came to Henley desperately. At that moment, Eleanor knocked frantically on the door. Mr. Mitchell. Maxwell Anderson is here and wants an immediate meeting or he'll cancel everything. My father looked at me desperately. Chris, you need to talk to him. I can talk to him. As a consultant. That will add another 20 hours to the contract. 20 hours? For a meeting? For saving a $12 million contract that you're about to lose. Ryan panicked. Anderson said if he doesn't talk to someone competent in 5 minutes, he's leaving. Sign the contract first, I said firmly. 4 minutes later, my father signed the most expensive document in the history of Mitchell Construction. The meeting with Anderson was masterful. I knew every detail of his project. In 30 minutes, I not only saved the contract, I got a 20% expansion. Now that's professionalism. Anderson declared. Finally, someone who understands. Over the next few days, I implemented changes that I could have done for free when I was an employee. Now each modification cost hundreds of dollars per hour. On Friday, I presented my final assessment. The company was 72 hours away from bankruptcy when I arrived, I announced in the conference room. Loss of 3 major contracts, compliance fines, inadequate management. Ryan cringed in his chair. We've managed to stabilize the situation. The total cost was $127,000, but you avoided losses of $2.30 million. My father was pale. $127,000. There is just one residual problem. You will need ongoing supervision. The current owner has demonstrated critical technical incompetence. Ryan finally exploded. I can't take this anymore. Chris, I don't want to own this company. It's too complicated and I don't understand anything. The silence was deafening. Interesting, he said calmly. Because Henley Development has a proposal for situations like this. I placed a second contract on the table. Complete acquisition of Mitchell Construction for $2.8 million. Immediate payment, transfer of all assets. You want to buy our company, my father whispered. Yes. And I would be the chief operating officer of the new Mitchell Construction, a subsidiary of Henley. The perfect irony was complete. They had given me the company for free to Ryan. Now they would have to sell it to me to give me back control. And this time, I would really be the owner. You have until Monday to decide, I said, heading for the door. After that, the offer expires and you're left with your consulting debts. The look of utter shock on their faces was the most satisfying moment of my professional life. Because they finally understood that the son they had underestimated had become the man who completely controlled their destiny. And Monday was coming fast. Monday arrived with a typical fall storm. I walked into Mitchell Construction at 8 a.m. sharp, no longer as a consultant for Henley Development, but as a potential new owner. The answer was waiting on my desk, an official envelope with the company crest that my grandfather had founded in 1962. Inside, 3 signatures confirmed the complete sale of Mitchell Construction to Henley Development for $2.80 million. My father was in the office when I opened the envelope, looking like he had aged a decade over the weekend. We signed, he said simply. Ryan doesn't want the responsibility anymore. And we can't afford the consulting fees. Where's Ryan? He's already moved to Portland. He said he's going to pursue the artistic career he always wanted. The irony was almost poetic. Ryan finally got the creative freedom he wanted, just not in the way he imagined. I later learned that he had sold his stake for a fraction of its real value, desperate to escape the responsibilities he never wanted. What about you, Dad? What are your plans? He sighed deeply. Henley offered me a senior consulting position. Part-time, focused on relationships with old clients. It's generous of them. Generous. That was how he viewed the offer I had structured to allow him to maintain his dignity and a decent income in retirement. Because, at the end of the day, he was still my father. In the first few months after the acquisition, the transformation was dramatic. Mitchell Construction, now a subsidiary of Henley Development, thrived under my official leadership as COO and principal shareholder. The first contract I closed was an expansion of the Anderson project. He was so impressed with the new management that he doubled the investment. Maxwell returned with 2 additional projects, commenting that he had finally found a company that understood his needs. It's amazing how the quality of service has improved, he told me during a meeting. It's as if you've hired someone who really understands the business. I just smiled. Sometimes it's just a matter of putting the right person in charge. Eleanor kept her job, now with a well-deserved promotion to executive manager. On my official first day, she approached me with tears in her eyes. Chris, I wanted to apologize for not telling you about the transfer. Eleanor, you were following orders. I understand perfectly. But thank you for finally supporting me when it mattered. You've always been the true leader of this company. Your grandfather would be proud to see how you not only regained control, but did so brilliantly. Her words touched me deeply. My grandfather had built this company with sweat and integrity. Seeing her thrive again, this time under my official direction, felt like honoring his legacy in the right way. 3 months after the acquisition, I received an unexpected call from a former competitor. Chris, it's David Westfield. I hear you've taken over Mitchell Construction completely. David Westfield was the CEO of our main competitor in the region. Our conversation was surprising. I have to admit, I've always respected your work, even when we were competing. Now that you're officially in charge, how about we discuss some partnerships? We have projects that are too big for one company. That was the first of many similar proposals. The construction industry had noticed the change in leadership, and my reputation for competence and integrity opened doors that Ryan could never have. 6 months later, I received an unexpected letter from Ryan. He was living in Portland, working part-time at an art gallery and painting on the weekends. Chris, he wrote, I know I never properly apologized. I didn't understand what you sacrificed all those years. I never understood the pressure, the responsibility, the weight of running a company. When Dad offered me the property, I saw only prestige and power. I didn't see the real work it meant. You were always better at this than I was. Maybe I had to fail so completely to recognize that. I hope someday we can be real brothers again, not competitors. 2 weeks later, I called him. Our conversation lasted 3 hours, long, honest, and for the first time in years, genuinely brotherly. Ryan was happy. For the first time in his adult life, he was doing something he truly loved, without the pressure of family expectations that never fit his personality. "You know, Chris," he said with a laugh, "I think in the end, you did me a favor. If I had stayed, I probably would have destroyed the company and our family along with it. Now I wake up every day wanting to paint, not running away from spreadsheets." He wasn't wrong. The crisis forced all of us to find our true places in life. My relationship with my parents gradually rebuilt itself, but in a completely different way. My mother returned to regular Sunday dinners, this time with more balanced conversations about personal and professional life. She stopped trying to mediate non-existent conflicts and started treating me like the competent adult I had always been. My father, working part-time and without the pressure of running everything, became a valuable mentor and a more present father. Our dynamic changed from boss-employee to consultant-executive, and eventually to father-son. "You taught me something important," he said to me on one of those Sunday afternoons, 6 months after the transition. "That respect isn't earned with titles, but with competence and character. I was so concerned with being fair to Ryan that I was unfair to you. Dad, you believed you were doing what was right for the family." "No, Chris. We were avoiding difficult conversations and taking the easy way out. Ryan never really wanted the responsibility, but it was easier to give it to him than to admit that you had already been the leader of the company for years." The deepest lesson came from an unexpected source. 2 years after the acquisition, I received an offer from a multinational company wanting to buy our expanded operation for $15 million. I turned it down. Marcus couldn't understand. "Chris, man, that's $15 million. You'd be a millionaire several times over." "But I didn't build this to sell, Marcus. I built it to create something lasting. Because I learned that the real value wasn't in the money the company could generate, but in the purpose she represented. Building something meaningful, employing good people, creating projects that improved our community." Today, 5 years after the acquisition, Mitchell Construction employs 180 people, triple what we had before the recession. We have offices in 3 states and a reputation for excellence that attracts the best projects in the region. More importantly, I have a balanced life. I work 45 hours a week, not 80. I have a wonderful girlfriend, Sarah, whom I met at a Henley networking event. She's an architect, so she understands the pressures of the business, but she also insists that I maintain healthy boundaries. "You know you can trust your team, right?" she reminds me when I'm occasionally tempted to work on the weekend. That obsessive control is exactly what nearly destroyed your life before. I take real vacations now. I play golf on Saturdays with my dad, something we started doing 6 months after we reconciled. During these games, he often comments on how the company thrives better under my relaxed leadership than it ever did under his intense management. Ryan visits twice a year and always comments on how much happier and more relaxed I seem. "You finally seem to be living, not just working," he observed on his last visit. "And man, the company has never looked so prosperous." He wasn't wrong. Without the constant pressure to prove myself, I was able to focus on sustainable building and organic growth. The sweetest revenge wasn't destroying those who betrayed me, but building something far better than they ever imagined possible. Turning betrayal into fuel for success that has benefited not only me, but hundreds of families who now depend on the jobs we've created. If this story of perseverance, justice, and transformation has touched you, subscribe to the channel. We have many more stories of people who turned betrayal into triumph, humiliation into empowerment, apparent defeat into ultimate victory. Because sometimes, losing everything you thought you wanted is exactly what you need to discover what you truly deserve. Last month, I accidentally found my father looking through old company photos in the office. One of them showed Ryan, him, and me during Mitchell Construction's 25th anniversary celebration. We were all smiling, looking like a close-knit family. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "at that time, I thought we were at our peak. Now I realize we had barely begun to scratch our potential." He was right. The current version of Mitchell Construction has not only surpassed all previous milestones, but redefined what was possible for a family-owned business in our industry. The last time I saw my old office as an employee, I thought my life was over. Now from my office window as the owner, I see not only a thriving company, but living proof that knowing your true worth and fighting for it is the most powerful and transformative revenge of all. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something so extraordinary that they realize exactly what they lost when they underestimated you.